Coming up on Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace.
Shane and I were both hit in the face with reality. Our marriage was just a shell. It finally got to the point where we were at a crossroads. We got to make some changes or we go our separate ways.
Welcome to a place where we discover the freedom and healing found only in Jesus Christ. Through powerful stories, our guests tell how He turns pain into peace, rewrites lives, and restores the wholeness only He can give. This is Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace.
Welcome to Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's topic is called The Danger of Pride. My special guest today is Gina Butler, and I'm so excited for y'all to hear from her. Gina has been very, very active in Deep in the Heart Ministries since 2022, and she stepped in as our executive director in September of 2024. And Gina, she is an author, a speaker, and is a woman who loves to teach the Word of God. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Grace. It's good to see you.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So, Gina, tell us about your growing-up years.
Growing up years. Well, let's see. I had the privilege of growing up in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, which everybody talks about was like the really cool time to grow up as a little kid, you know. No cell phones, no internet, no social media, no computers. Everything was either in a newspaper or on the 3 channels on the TV. Mm-hmm. That's how you got all your stuff. I was born in Texarkana and lived there till I was in the 5th grade, and then my parents moved to Hughes Springs, which is a tiny little town in northeast Texas with 1 stoplight. And there went to junior high and high school. Just really, it was a Mayberry. It was an idyllic, you know, has a main street with the stores on either side, the sidewalks down the street. I mean, we have Christmas parades still, you know, it was a Mayberry. Everybody knew everybody. Small town, less than 2,000 people, you know, really cool thing.
Yeah. So it sounds like you really had a pretty stable home life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stay at home mom.
Okay.
The whole, you know, dad worked. Mom was stay at home. Boy, she had that dinner on the table at 6 o'clock when Daddy walked in the door, you know.
Yes.
To get to go out to eat was a treat.
Right.
Something we did not do very often. Church on Sunday, ball games on Friday. Yeah, just the Norman Rockwell home life is what it was.
So your family did go to church.
Absolutely.
Growing up, and you came to faith in Christ.
I was probably somewhere between 5 and 6 years old.
Okay.
I can remember sitting at my kitchen table. My mom was cooking lunch, and I was sitting at the table, and I distinctly remember asking her about how I got to have Jesus in my heart. And she told me, you know, this is what you do. And so I did. Now, it wasn't until I was probably 10 that I realized what that really meant, what it meant to be a Christian, to live a life for Jesus and all that kind of thing. And so, but yeah, I mean, from 5 years on and up, that always, always in love with Jesus.
And you were close to your folks.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all had a good relationship.
We did. We had a great relationship. Like I say, Mom was that mom that, you know, there were cookies in the cookie jar and all that kind of stuff. She grew up with as her grandmother raised her. And so her grandma was from the Depression era. Mm-hmm. And so everything was homemade. You know, Mom knew how to cook everything in the world. Just an excellent cook. Yeah. All the clothes were washed. I mean, it was really kind of spoiled.
Yeah.
Because when I got married, I didn't know how to cook or do laundry either, because she always did everything.
Well, I think you learned quickly.
Oh, yeah, you do.
So.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of marriage, when did you and Shane meet, and when did y'all get married?
Shane and I met at Kilgore College. I decided to go there when I graduated high school, and was just really didn't know what I wanted to do. I entered college as a psychology major. Thought I wanted to be a counselor. Mm-hmm. by the time I got finished with that first or second semester, I was like, no, this is not for me, because there were too many ology classes you had to take, and I wasn't into ology classes.
Yeah.
Paleontology, anthropology, all those ologies. And so I changed my major to elementary education. Mm-hmm. And when I first came on campus, and that was back in the day, when you had to go at Kilgore College, you actually went to the library, met your professor, signed up for the class. Mm-hmm. Nothing like now, right. And so I was coming out of the library from signing up for classes, and there was a girl there that I knew, and she said, "Hey, have you been to the BSU?" Which now it's called BSM. Baptist Student mm-hmm. Ministry. Back then it was Baptist Student Union. Mm-hmm. I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So she told me about it, and she said, they have a singing group and they need a piano player. Well, that's right up my alley. I said, hey, I'll go over there. She said, yeah, go over there and get a thing and try out. I said, okay. So I walk in the BSU at Kilgore College, and there's a big old ping pong table set up, and there's this guy standing there, and he's messing with the ping pong table. And he's a typical college kid in 1983, baggy pants, mm-hmm. Cape of tennis shoes, the whole 9 yards. And I walked by him, and he goes, would you like to play ping pong with me? And I said, absolutely not. And I just kept right on walking.
Yeah.
Little did I know that he was the tenor singer mm-hmm. in the singing group.
Yes.
And so a month or so later, I was chosen to be the piano player. We have our first practice, and there's that guy that wanted to play ping pong, and he's the tenor singer.
Right.
And that was Shane. And we became friends, mm-hmm. Just like any other group of students. When they've all got something that they have in common, they'll all hang out together. And that's what we did. We all hung out together. There's about 10 of us. And then that next semester is when we thought, we might want to date. We think we want to date. And so we did, and like dumb kids do, we decided we wanted to get married, and the next thing you know, we got married in December of 1984.
And y'all were young.
Oh, yeah, just turned 20.
20, okay.
I had been 20 less a month, and he had turned 20 in June. So, yeah, we were babies.
Right.
Just, dumb and in love. Had zero money, had no kind of plans.
Right.
Just wanted to get married,
Right.
And I guess back in 1984, you could do that and it'd still work.
Right.
I'm not sure people would do that now.
Things were a lot cheaper then.
They were a whole lot cheaper then.
Well, good. So y'all got married, and the early years of your marriage, you would say y'all ended up moving away from...
Yes, because when we got married, he had a house or a very, very, now it would be called a tiny house. He had a very tiny house. It would be on trend, But this tiny house was something to behold. And, I'll just say it had a hole in the floor, and we kept it covered up with a rug. And so we lived there. And then about, I guess 3 or 4 months after we got married, because when we got married, he sold shoes in the mall. And after 3 or 4 months after that, he got a job working for an air conditioning company. Mm-hmm. And that was good because they had insurance. Mm-hmm. Because unbeknownst to us, the Lord had plans for us to have a baby. Mm-hmm. And so 6 months after we got married, I got pregnant. And hello.
Right.
That's a whole new ball game, you know.
Right.
And so we moved into another tiny house, and Jacob was born a year later, in February of 87. And we just thought, this is our life. We're going to live here in Kilgore. It was actually called Liberty City was where we were, a little bitty town. We went to church there, and I played the piano at that church. Wonderful church, wonderful church. And then he got a job working at a company called Pilgrim's Pride. And so we moved to Pittsburgh.
Okay. So, and y'all hadn't had Callie yet.
No,
y'all decided we're going to start our new little family over Pittsburgh.
We moved. I think Jacob was probably 6 months old maybe when we moved, and we bought our first house in a first land. I think we had, maybe it was 2 acres. I'm not sure. It's too many years ago, Grace. But yeah, we had our, we were good, and he worked at Pilgrim's in Mount Pleasant, and Started going to church and doing all the things.
There.
Yeah, oh yeah. Had a wonderful Sunday school in that church, a wonderful couple who mentored young marrieds, and they were just amazing. And we learned so much, during those first 3 or 4 years of our marriage, being at that church. It was really a cool thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So when did the Lord, supposedly tell you that you were going to embark on your own business?
Oh, that was a long time away from there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was a long time. That was probably 10 years later. Way after that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So the early years, y'all were fine. Then.
Well, we thought we were fine.
Okay.
We thought we were fine.
Okay.
We were doing all the things that young marrieds do in the 80s. Everybody, we had probably 10 or 15 couples that were friends that we all socialized together and that kind of thing, and began to, just like every other married couple that I've ever known, try to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I was going to college because I had promised my father that if he would allow me to get married, I would finish my degree. And so I started back to university in the spring after we moved there to Pittsburgh, and only took like 2 classes a week. It came here to Tyler, drove to Tyler 2 days a week. And so I was doing that. Jacob was staying with my mom or with another person for daycare. Shane actually started working nights.
Okay.
And nights were, he would leave the house at like 1:30 in the afternoon and not get home until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And so we just thought that's what you got to do to get where you want to be. I mean, we still went to church, didn't miss church. The door was open. We're there, Now he wasn't, because he worked at night. And then he also began to work on the weekends. That's just what they did. They were building that business, and he was where he worked was called a prepared foods plant, and that was at the beginning of Pilgrim's, making chicken nuggets and all that kind of stuff, and so he was on that ground floor.
Right.
And that's just what you did if you wanted to be successful, And so he was working. I'm going to school. The time that we have together as a family is just not a whole lot,
Right.
It's just not a whole lot. I mean, yeah, we would see each other from morning time to lunch. We'd go to lunch, or I'd fix lunch or whatever, but then Daddy would leave, and
the rest of y'all were at
Jacob
home.
and I were chilling, we were there by ourselves. Right. And especially when I was going to college, which I did, it took me 4 years to complete my degree, because I took it a little bit at a time, because I did have a child. I didn't have any loans or grants, so we had to pay for it as we could, And so there wasn't a lot of time for us to foster a marriage that wasn't even 3 years old yet,
Right.
It was just 2.5 years old when all this started.
Right.
And so to say that we knew something was wrong, nah.
Okay.
We didn't have a clue. We just thought that's the way life was.
Right.
That's just the way you did it.
Right.
If you wanted to be successful, this is the sacrifices you had to make.
Right.
And in the meantime, you continue with the, going to church and being a part, and because I played the piano, I was on staff there. I was at choir practice, and I was at youth choir practice, and I was there on Sundays and Wednesday nights, and that kind of thing. It was just like,
did you get? Yeah, I mean, y'all were just passing through the night.
Absolutely,
right.
yeah,
So it's
kind of like boiling that frog. When you put a frog in cold water and you turn it on, he doesn't realize he's getting boiled till it's too late,
Right.
And that's the way it was with us. We just thought, this is what we have to do.
So how long did y'all keep that rhythm going?
About 4 years.
Okay.
About 4 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. And what happened was there was a revival team, a ministry team called Life Action Ministries. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but this is, like I say, 40 years ago nearly. They would come to a church or a community and stay for 2 or 3 weeks and lead the church in all kinds of, it was like bringing a camp to you, a conference to you. Does that make sense?
Right.
I mean, there were parenting things you could go to, marriage things you could go to, singles, but it was kind of an intense time where you sat there and looked at, what does my relationship with God look like? What does he want from me? You know, and so that team came to our church in Pittsburgh. And it was kind of fun because the people would stay at your home. We had 2 or 3 ladies stay with us, and then there would be Bible studies for the women, Bible studies for the men, that kind of thing. And it was at one of those. It was during that time that Shane and I were both hit in the face with reality.
Okay. Right. And so
that what we had been doing was playing a game.
Yeah.
And that our marriage was just a shell.
Right.
And there was nothing there.
Right.
You know?
Right.
The foundation that we had started in such a good spot with a family that loved Jesus and taught us how to love Jesus and gave us all of those things. And we started in a good spot.
Okay.
But we didn't own Jesus enough for ourselves to carry on into a marriage.
Right.
And so it finally got to the point where we were at a crossroads. And it was either we got to make some changes or we go our separate ways.
Right.
And
that was very, very difficult. For both of y'all to know, like, is this marriage salvageable?
Absolutely.
Is this who I am supposed to be with for the rest of my life? I'm sure both of y'all had those thoughts going on. And so, and y'all were still young. You were only in your 20s at the most.
24? Right. 25, something like that.
And so,
most people don't even get married to that now.
Right.
You know,
just your maturity and understanding how relationships are supposed to go, how marriages, and how y'all just kind of allowed the world to dictate
what our life was going to be like.
Right.
And it was that ministry team and the teaching that we sat under for those 2 weeks that we realized we'd been living a life of works, a life of legalism,
a
life of cause and effect. You know, there was no sacrifice involved for each other. There was no, God, I want to do what you want me to do. It was, God, I'm going to do this, and then you bless it because this is what I want.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it was a very eye-opening moment for both of us, not only as a couple, but also individually. And that's where, to me, that's an Ebenezer stone in my life, where I laid down a rock and I said, right here, this is where God spoke to my heart and said, this is who you are. He revealed himself to me. He showed me my depravity. He showed me the pride, the selfishness, all of those things that I was eat up with and didn't even realize.
Right. Because you thought, Shane's providing for the family. I'm doing all my duties at the church.
Absolutely.
And I'm raising my kids in the church. But really you were doing this with the motive of like, well, I want people to know that I am a
I am
wife?
a devoted wife. I am a devoted Christian. I love the Lord. I have all my ducks in a row. They are doing exactly what I want them to do. You know?
Right.
And when I look back on it now, and it makes my stomach hurt. It makes my stomach hurt to know that I was so full of pride and that I walked around with my nose up high and thinking I have this imaginary audience that's watching me and wishing they could be like me, wishing they could have the husband that I had and the child that I had and the ability to play the piano like I could and all of these things that made me look good on the outside, but on the inside, it was rotten.
Right.
It was rotten.
It's just you're seeking affirmation from the outside world and thinking that somehow that's going to improve your worth and your standing and your reputation and all of that.
Since then, since all that took place and God got us to a point where, I mean, it was nothing. We went back to nothing. The whole life that we had built was ashes at this point.
Okay.
And we said, Lord, here, take it.
Right.
You do what you want to. You remake us the way we're supposed to be. He said that for himself. I said that for myself.
Good.
And the Lord revealed to me that the root issue of the whole thing for me was pride.
Okay.
Was pride.
Yeah.
And it was living in fear, living under the spirit of fear, the fear of man and the fear of rejection. Right. Because when you live under the fear of man, you feel you live in an approval-based life, which is poster child. It was exactly who I was. It was everything I did had to be approved by certain people in order for me to be worth something.
Right.
And when you live under the fear of rejection, which was the other piece to me, was performance-based living. Everything's got to be perfect. Everything I do has to be perfect. Every song I played, every dress I wore, every outfit I showed up at church in.
That's exhausting.
Exactly. Everything has to be perfect because I had to meet certain standards in order to be worthy.
Right. Right.
And, that was the beginning of God revealing that to me. And you asked me earlier, when did you realize that pride was the issue? That was a long time coming. That was a long time coming because I had to work through all of the junk and the facade that I had built up around myself. I mean, we started over.
Right.
We started over,
But you and Shane definitely let go of those things of the world and finally said, okay, Lord, what is it that you are trying to teach us?
Yes. And that meant, that was some really hard things that we did, Grace. The first thing I did was quit school.
Okay.
That went over like a lead balloon.
Yeah. I'm sure your father was happy.
Oh, no. They were not happy at all. They were not happy at all. But I had to say, Lord, I want to do what you want me to do.
Right.
Not what I want to do.
Or what other people want me to do.
So we started with a blank slate. And that meant I quit school. Now, Shane didn't say that to me. He didn't say, well, you need to quit school. Blah, blah.
Right.
He didn't say that. I did that because I felt like that's what God wanted me to do. To concentrate on building anew the relationship with this man that we were husband and wife and were in covenant with the Lord.
Right.
And we have this little boy. Right. Who we want to raise him the way God wants him to be raised. And so the sacrifice was, I'm putting myself to the side.
Right. Right.
I'm putting myself to the side.
Did y'all do counseling or anything like
yes.
that? Okay.
Oh, heavens, yes. That ministry team actually had counselors there.
Okay.
And we went to that. And then after we found a great counselor here in Tyler. Okay. And we came to, counseling here in Tyler.
And Shane, he changed things in his life as well.
Absolutely. Okay. It was silly stuff that people would be like, well, that doesn't really matter. But Shane has always been a risk taker. Okay. The man loves to go fast. He loves to race cars, and he loves to build things from the bottom up, and so he was always living on that edge.
Okay.
And he knew it drove me nuts because I was always afraid if you fall off the edge, what am I going to do?
Right.
You're leaving me as a widow and your son as with no daddy. And so he changed all that. He completely changed all that.
Okay.
And eventually, as this process, I wished I could say, well, this happened in 6 months, everything was perfect, but that's not the way it worked.
No.
We had to work through 4 years of junk,
Yeah.
And eventually Shane took a demotion voluntarily.
Okay.
So that he could be on days.
Correct.
So that he could be with his family.
That's huge.
And that was big.
That's a sacrifice for a man to do.
Are you kidding me? He goes, if I don't do this, I'm not going to see our son.
No, and he's not going to see you either.
And he said, this is what I've got to do. And I'm like, how are we going to live? Because it wasn't just a demotion in step down the ladder, but the money changed too.
Right, I know.
And so, but the Lord honored that. He honored that choice.
Right.
And he made it to where financially we were good.
Right.
Now we were not rich by any, wealthy or anything like that.
Go hungry.
No,
we
had food on the table and clothes on our back, and a daddy at home.
Right.
Which was daddy huge. At home, which was huge.
Right.
Exactly.
I bet it was very humbling as well as difficult in admitting that, wow, what your part in just the trajectory of how your marriage just went down the tubes, as well as for Shane. But obviously I'm not interviewing Shane now, but as for you, how was that when Jesus finally just said, Gina, you're going to have to look at me. It's you and me, girl. What are we going to do about this? And all those other things that you worried about, you're like, oh my God, that doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And that's the part that makes my stomach hurt. That I spent all that time and energy worrying about, trying to be pleasing to people that I don't even see anymore.
Right. Right.
And gain affirmation about tasks and things that I don't even have in my life anymore.
Right.
And,
how do you avoid that? I mean, we're much older now. Like I think everybody struggles with that, Gina.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I have found myself when somebody's raving about somebody and I'm thinking, oh, they're talking about me and it's not even me. And I'm thinking, why am I craving that praise from a man? And then I realize, oh my God, what? Yeah, like it's a heart issue. And it's going back to like, I don't need praise from other men or women or whatever to be a woman that the Lord is, that's all I'm accountable to, is what He wants me to do, how He wants me to use the giftings He's given me. It's all for His glory. It's not for mine.
Exactly.
And, but it's so hard to tell younger women and men that don't worry about, don't worry about all those things.
And it's magnified even more in 2025 than it was in 1988, 89, 1991.
Yes, social media.
Because of social media. Exactly, right. Because of social media. And, I'm a driver. I don't know what that falls on the personality thing now, but back in the day, I was considered a driver, someone that's leading, someone that's, always out front. And I loved doing that because I wanted to be seen.
Yes. Okay.
I wanted to be seen because I had this imaginary audience.
Yes.
That, I would think when I was at the piano bench that all those people out there are watching me.
Right.
And they're looking at me and they're thinking about, oh, I wish I could play like her, or, oh, I wish I could dress like her.
Right.
Or, that kind of
right.
thing. Wish I could drive the car that she drives.
Right.
And that, I think that's a lot of that age.
Yes.
25 to 40. I think that's a lot of that age right there that you're competing against each other, especially if you're a driver, because you want to be at the top. You want to be at the top, and I remember you asked earlier about the purchasing a business. And so we bought this business that was established and had great clientele and all this kind of stuff, got a good deal on it. But the whole reason we bought the business was so that I could move into the social circles. In this little town that's got 4,000 people. Whoop-de-freaking do, But anyway, and so we buy this business, and boy, I'm just so thrilled and just so proud that I'm now going to get to stand out on Main Street and, look down the street, because where we lived at that point was just another idyllic place. And I remember going to another business there and asking them something about getting wallpaper or something, and they just looked at me kind of funny. And that's when it hit me. People are fickle. People are fickle.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care
mm-hmm.
that you've bought a business.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care that you want to be in with them
mm-hmm.
because they got their own stuff to tend to.
Mm-hmm.
And people are fickle.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, oh boy, this ain't going to be what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I had these dreams of Hallmark movies where everybody comes to the social, and all this kind of stuff. And that's not at all the way it turned out, because the Lord didn't want me there to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I did it on my own.
Right.
He used that 2 years to continue to reveal himself to me and to continue peel back those layers of that pride. Mm-hmm. It was tough. It was hard. We ended up closing the business and selling it, and
mm-hmm.
Never did get all that mess paid for till about 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
As far as financially goes, it was just the biggest mess. But God got a hold of me again, another Ebenezer stone,
mm-hmm.
and said, look, here's who I want you to be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to be this. I want you to be this.
Right, right.
And he took us to a place that he began to, I call it, he just loved on us for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Took me out of, we left the place where we were. We left and we moved to Hugh Springs,
mm-hmm.
Where my parents were. My dad passed away, and my mom was alone, and so we felt like we needed to go and take care of her, and so we moved to Hugh Springs and joined a church there and didn't do a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't get on a committee, didn't play a piano, didn't do a thing,
So
about 2 or 3 years.
When y'all, after all of that, the business failing, and you realizing, wow, this whole pride thing again has started rearing its ugly head again, did it remind you of the first time?
Oh, yes.
What y'all had gone through?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Lord knows how stupid we are. Like,
mm-hmm.
we are going to do the exact same thing again.
He does.
Even though we have learned it the hard way. But the second time, I think, you're more quick and apt to recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, when you started the business, I'm sure you were like, oh, this is God's will.
Oh, yeah.
You said that to rationalize that.
The fact that I wanted it.
Right, that you wanted it. And so.
Which that's called self-justification.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's called self-justification. And Psalm 59:12 says, for the sins of their mouths, for the words of their lips, let them be caught in their pride.
Yes.
Which is where I was.
Right.
Right.
I
remember standing there in that building going, Lord, this is all for you. This is all for your glory. La, 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 la. That was a lie.
Yeah. Okay.
That was pride. That was a lie. I mean, I believed that lie. I believed it. I believed it.
Yes, you believed it.
I did.
But
2 years down the road, when I see, the mistakes and because it was all my doing, Mm-hmm. It wasn't the Lord's doing. It was my doing. And I remember standing in my parents' kitchen and talking to my dad about it. And I was like, man, I just don't know what we're going to do. And we had been asked to take a bunch of teenagers on a youth camp because they had something had happened and the person that was going to take them couldn't take them. And so the pastor had come to us and said, hey, can you take these kids? Because he knew we'd had experience with that. You know, we'd done that in previous church. And I was like, man, I got that store I'm trying to deal with, you know, I just don't know. And I could still see my dad. And he goes, you know, perhaps God brought you to this place for this time. And perhaps it's time for you to turn loose of the mess and let him take care of it.
So he saw it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How did you respond?
I just looked at him and I said, I think you're right, Dad. He goes, yeah.
Okay. So you were beginning to see the truth of what was going on.
I knew that, yeah. And so we did. I mean, we shut the doors of the place and we put it up for sale, and it just sat there and it sat there and it sat there, and we continued to pay for it and pay for it and pay for it. And
yeah, I know.
It got to a point where I was like, Lord, Shane and I were like, this is fixing to get ugly here. We're fixing to have to start, you know, doing some different things. And on the very last day, at the very last time, is when the Lord stepped in. Okay. And he said, here's a buyer.
You know, I think he purposely did that to teach y'all. God has a way of doing that. You know?
He does.
He's done that to me many, many times.
Sure does.
Like, he does allow us to experience the consequences of our sins. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But also in a loving way. But, you know, he's just not going to bail you out.
Absolutely not. God is already, you know, the provision for whatever the need is already there. Mm-hmm. Because he remembers the future. Mm-hmm. We don't. We hadn't even lived it yet. But he remembers the future. And so he already had provided for that need. My friend Ken Wesson says he provides for our needs at our time of need, at our point of need. Well, we were in a time of need. Mm-hmm. We needed that building. So we were in a time of need.
For sure.
But we weren't at the point of need yet. Mm-hmm. And when we were at the point of need, is when the Lord said, here you go.
Okay. He said, I'm going to take care of you.
I take care of it. And he did. And he did, you know. And, and we walked away from that. And that was all him. That was nothing we did. Every bit of it was him. And, you know, from that point on, Shane and I, that was in like 90, I don't know, 7, 8, something like that. From that point on, no matter what the question was, the circumstance was, the situation was, no matter how hard it was, no matter what kind of sacrifice we had to make, we were going to do it God's way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because we had seen what doing it not God's way.
You're doing your thing, hoping God's going to bless it.
Right.
And he's like...
We were going to do it God's way.
Right.
And from that point on, that's just the way and it ain't been easy.
Right.
I shouldn't say ain't. It's not been easy, Grace. But no, it has not been easy. To me, people say, well, the Christian walk's the easiest thing you'll ever do. No, it's not.
Oh.
No, it's not. Because
I do not agree.
Paul says in Philippians 2, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility,
consider others
above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Right. If we just took that one little verse and lived the Christian life according to that one little verse, how different all our relationships would be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because it'd always be about the other person.
Right.
It wouldn't be about me.
Right.
You know.
Well, I know that, you know, Proverbs 16:18, pride goes before destruction.
Absolutely.
A haughty spirit before a fall.
Yep.
And I think pride is one of those things, though, Gina, that it can masquerade itself in other forms that you're not even aware that this is what you're struggling with. I can easily see it in other people, but I can't see it in me. And
one of the biggest things of pride is self-sufficiency. And in our American world, our American nation, we were built on self-sufficiency, you know, independence. I can do it by myself. That is the biggest thing of pride right there. That is so full of pride, because the scripture says in Psalm 10:4, in his pride, the wicked man does not seek him, capital H, but in all his thoughts, there is no room for God.
Right.
I can do it on my own. And, you know, hello, that's me.
Right.
That's me. And I'm still learning that process.
Right.
One of the just a couple of days ago, as I was thinking about Deep in the Heart Ministries and the stuff that you and I do together, I was like, Lord, this is so hard. I don't know what I'm doing. He said, no, you don't.
Right.
But I do.
He knows what he's doing.
He said, but I know what I'm doing, and I'm using you in grace to do it. So you just follow my lead and let me do it, you know.
Right. Right.
And so, but I think self-sufficiency, self-justification, self-assurance, so proud of ourselves. We can figure it all out. You know, we're so smart, you know, all of those things that are considered good things for people to have good self-esteem.
Right.
Masquerade as pride. You know,
right.
Masquerade as pride.
Yeah. One of my questions I was going to ask you, but you have already answered it, is why God cannot use people who are boastful and prideful. And why is that? Because they don't feel like they need him.
That's right.
They feel like it's anything they're capable of.
That's
and
right.
Nobody else is going to do it as good as they can. And you don't even invite God into the things that you have said, okay, I'm going to invest myself into this.
Right. There's a little term I came up with, self-delusion.
Yeah.
And Obadiah, when's the last time you read Obadiah? You know, that's not a book we all go to on a daily basis. But Obadiah chapter 1 verse 3 says, the pride of your heart has deceived you. You who live in the clefts of the rocks and make your home on the heights, you say to yourself, who can bring me down to the ground?
Right.
You know,
right.
The pride of your heart has deceived you. We don't think we need him.
Right.
We don't think we need anybody.
Right.
You know,
right.
We want somebody to need us,
right?
But we don't want anybody else to, you know, we don't need them,
right?
You know,
we're self-sufficient.
Yeah, we're self-sufficient,
right? So while I was preparing for this, you know, I ran across this verse, 1 John 2:15 through 16, and it kind of summarizes kind of the battle that we do have with pride. Because it says, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life comes not from the Father, but from the world. And it pretty much, you know, talks about just what you mentioned, like, you know, the lust of our flesh, the lust of our eyes, you know, the things that we want, you know, poured onto us because we're just the greatest thing.
Yeah, you know? Exactly.
And it's like, who are you joking? You know, I mean,
when Jesus was born, you know, first of all, to a 15 or 16-year-old girl that was nothing, with an earthly dad that was a carpenter, that was really nothing too. And he came to this earth in a manger, a feed trough, born in a barn.
Yes.
And the first visitors were shepherds, who were the lowest of the low.
Right.
Because they were the outcasts of society. A shepherd job was the very last job you wanted.
Right.
Because it was stinky, nasty, dirty.
Right.
And those are the ones that God sent himself incarnate to be among men. You know, how did Jesus model humility? He went around people that nobody else would talk to.
Right.
You know,
right.
He healed the lepers. He healed the blind, the beggars, and the lame. And he talked to women. You notice in New Testament, Jesus always talking to a woman. Well, I'm going to tell you, in those days, men and women didn't talk to each other.
Right.
That was not a good thing.
Right.
But he broke that. He said, no, that's, you know.
Right.
And another thing is, on the cross, he never he could, the song is he could have called 10,000 angels. Well, yeah, he could have to get him down.
Right.
And tell y'all, forget it.
Right.
You know, and even after he was resurrected and walked among men for 40 days, why didn't he go back to those very folks who put him in that kind of position and say, looky here? Mm-hmm. Because Jesus modeled humility.
Right.
It was all about glorifying the Father.
Right.
It wasn't about glorifying him.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, not at all. And so, and actually, you know, this episode's going to air in early January, and we have just celebrated Christmas.
Right.
And the whole fact that Jesus was the epitome and our model for humility, and how he literally laid down his life to save us. Mm-hmm. And, oh my gosh, you know, I think the longer you walk with the Lord and the longer that you get to know him more, the more we realize how there's nothing good that lives in us. And it's all because of him, why we can do the good works that he wants us to do for others to experience who he is. Right. You know, and so, but yeah, it's just that pride thing, Gina, you know, and I mean, I'm more conscious about it. Like, if I can feel like, oh, why am I wanting that attention? I know that's something I got to go to the Lord about, because I'm just not going to let it go, you know, uncontrolled and me ending up, you know, in a bad place. Right. Because
Paul, this morning on the way up here, because I was nervous about doing this whole thing because I just really didn't know what the Lord wanted me to say, but I was listening to Philippians on the way up here, and in Philippians chapter 3, verse 12, it says, and this is the way I feel about it, not that I've already obtained all of this. It's a process. You know, the first Ebenezer stone that I laid down in my life was like 1988, 1987, something like that. And then again in 1998, something like that, you know, and there's still times in my life where the Lord goes, right here. Mark this down right here. You know, it's a process as we continue to allow him to reveal us to us. You know, not that I've already obtained this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on. I press on. I keep going to take hold of what Christ Jesus took hold of me. I don't consider myself yet to have achieved it. It's not there yet. But one thing I do, I forget what's behind. I forget what's behind, and I strain toward what's ahead, which for us is being with him, you know, or the men's conference in February, you know, the things that he's laid out in front of you and I to do at Deep in the Heart Ministries. I strain toward what is ahead, and I press on toward the goal. Well, the goal is to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. You know, it is a continual process. Right. And every day, I used to didn't understand this, and I think you're right. It comes with maturity. I didn't understand, and people say, you know, well, you got to confess your sins every day because we sin every day. I'd be like, I don't sin every day. Sin's not a behavior. Sin's a motive. Right. Behaviors are the results of the motives. Yeah. You know. I know. And so the Lord showed me that, you know, and it's an everyday thing. One of the best sayings I ever came across was Dwight L. Moody. You know who that is. Okay, and he said this: Moses spent 40 years thinking he was somebody, which he did. He was a prince. He was raised as a prince, you know, and then it all fell apart, and thinking he was somebody, and then 40 years learning he was a nobody. He was a nobody because he spent the next 40 years hiding out from everybody, tending sheep, getting a wife, doing all that. And then 40 years discovering what God can do with a nobody. Exactly. You know? I know. And I feel the same way. You know, I was probably 35, so when God finally got me where he could really work on me, I spent 35 years thinking I was somebody, you know. I know. And so, I continually the devil loves to bring that stronghold up,
Yeah, right. Right.
And he loves to push that fear back on me, a fear of man and fear of rejection.
Right.
Living for performance and approval and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I'm constantly going, nope.
No, it's good. But you recognize it now.
Absolutely.
And
Holy Spirit, keep showing me.
right.
Keep showing me.
Rebuke me, Satan. And
Keep showing me.
right. I mean, I remember in the past, I would have to ask myself, Lord, reveal any unconfessed sin that I have in my life, because my eyes don't see the things that I do wrong. And it's not until somebody else points it out to me or I've hurt somebody that I'm like, oh, there I go. Why did I say that? And so, but yeah, I love the fact that you said it's God revealing us to us. And so it is. But we have to be willing to be, sifted and having him, peel and clean and dissect and all of that.
And it's still going on. You mentioned that Callie and I have an online Bible study.
Yeah.
And we also do a podcast. The Lord uses that to continue to sift us.
No.
Because it's hard. It is hard to speak truth that is going out all over the world. Because you're like,
Right.
what if I hack somebody off? And especially in the age of social media, what if they start typing on their little computer and writing all kinds of garbage, And the Lord's like, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid.
Right.
I've got you.
Right.
I've got you.
Well, I feel like, as you know, being in ministry, all he wants from us is just our obedience.
That's
and
it.
He takes care of the results.
That's right.
And anything in between of that, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's a matter of like, okay, Lord, I think you're telling me to do this. All right. It sounds crazy, but we will step out in faith in that you're going to provide and bring the people that needs to, all of it, Gina. I mean, the men's conference,
Let's
definitely.
have a men's conference.
Right. The
What?
men's
2
conference.
women planning a men's conference? Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind?
It's so, but he put that on my heart several years ago. So, and it was just a matter of timing of when that was going to happen. And just like the women's conference, I never really went to a women's conference before, but he doesn't care. He's like, but people, and people who have experienced me. I want to get these stories out. And it's like, yes, Lord. That's all we can say is yes, Lord.
Yeah.
We will do it. And so
it's cool the way the sovereignty of God and how he works all that together and how he, just our relationship. He brought us to Tyler 15 years ago. I didn't even know who Dr. Grace English was, and then he brought us to Bethesda, and then he just continued to move around until we came together. And so, I love, I think it's Galatians 1:10. And you had asked me for some verses that describe my life, that are like my life verses. One of them is Galatians 1:10, and I go to this a lot whenever I may have spoken truth and it's hurt somebody's feelings. But it says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God, or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." People are fickle, they're fickle.
Yes.
And so Jesus is the only one who will not change and who's going to love you forever, no matter what, no matter what.
Right. Because not everybody's going to agree with what you are doing, saying, and all of that. And so, but at the same time, the Lord wants us to be respectful to others, and it's not necessarily like you're discrediting them, when you're doing something they don't want you to do, but you're going to listen to the Lord. Like, you're not going to listen to these people who are telling you, why are you doing that? Kind of thing. So, but yeah, that's one of my favorite life verses as well, Gina. So, but yes. So Gina, tell us about the book that you wrote.
Oh, the book.
Yes.
The fun book. So this was another one of those God deals. And 8 years ago or so, the Lord told me, you mentioned I'd been a history teacher. I have always loved history my whole life. And finally got around to majoring in history, and the Lord continues to use that in the Bible studies because I love digging up all that stuff about how life really was back in those days, and telling the story with that angle on it and everything. And so back in 2017 in the fall, the Lord impressed upon me. He said, I want you to write a Bible study from Matthew chapter 1 of the 5 women that are listed in the lineage of Jesus.
Sure.
And I said, I've written a lot of things. Like we used to teach all the time to the young people. So Sunday school lessons and that kind of stuff. But actual study, never done anything like it, didn't have a clue. He said, I want you to do that. I was like, Lord, I don't know where to start. He said, well, you just listen to me. And so I got a couple of books. I read some books about being humble. One by Andrew Murray. He's long since dead, but anyway. And so then I began to write this study on the 5 women. Mary, of course, his mom, Bathsheba, David's wife, Ruth, and then Tamar and Rahab.
Okay.
Except it's the other way around. It goes Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. And so I write this Bible study. And I'm like, Lord, I don't have anybody to teach this to. He goes, you just write. I'll let you know. You just write. I said, okay. Well, that was in the fall. Christmas comes and goes. New Year's happens. And about February, I was scrolling through Facebook like we all do. And one of the young ladies that I knew her parents. I didn't really know her, but I knew her parents, posted on her page, in search of a small women's Bible study in the Tyler area.
Okay.
And the Lord went, there's your green light. I said, well, I don't even know this person. He said, doesn't matter.
Right.
Message her. So I did.
Good.
And she was like, oh, yeah, I'd love to come. And I've got a friend I want to bring. I said, well, okay, bring your friend. And so then he told me, he said, I want you to invite this person, this person, this person. These were all women.
Oh, good.
That were all about the same age.
Yeah.
I knew them, but like we weren't buddies,
Right.
Anything like that. And of course, Callie, she came too. And so we went through that whole study. And then we finished, and they were like, and they would come to my house once a month, and I'd fix them dinner, and we'd have study and everything, and it was kind of like their little retreat time. And so when we finished that study, they were like, well, we want to keep doing this. And I'm like, all right. I'll go to Lifeway and get a Bible study for us to do. And they were like, no, we want you to write it. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know how to, what am I going to write it on? Well, we don't know, but that's what we want. And so the Lord said, write it on the women that Jesus met in the New Testament.
Okay.
So I started doing that, and we went through that whole study. Suffice it to say, that group of women still meeting today. We met night before last.
Yeah.
That's like
Wonderful.
9 years now.
Yeah.
But the book ended up, what the book is those first 2 Bible studies, Matthew chapter 1 and then the women Jesus met in the New Testament.
Okay.
And I had a friend that encouraged me to publish that. And I was like, well, yeah. But it's really been, the Lord just did it, and,
right.
I'm not going to win a Pulitzer Prize or anything like that.
So tell us the title.
It's called What About Her?
Okay.
And you can find it on Amazon if you want to, or you can contact me, and I've got a bunch of copies at my house. Glad to get you one. But.
Yeah. So it's What About Her? A Study of Biblical Women.
Yes. It's the 5 women from Matthew chapter 1 in Jesus' lineage. And then it's the women he met, not all of them, but a lot of the women that he met in the New Testament.
Good deal.
And his encounter with them and how he treated them.
So speaking of contact, you can be found on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Instagram. And then you also have a website, your personal, which is?
GRJB Ministries.
Okay. Very good. And so people can easily find you and contact you. And And in the show notes, we'll have a link to the book so people can grab a copy or call you and get a copy that you have.
Right, yeah.
You know.
Because Callie and I do go and speak, wherever she sings.
Yeah.
And I teach, and we go to conferences and stuff like that. So,
anyway. No, that is so sweet. I love the fact that you can work with your daughter and have that really fun relationship where y'all are.
She is the boss. When it's time for Bible study, because we do the online Bible study at our house. We have a studio set up.
Yeah.
And so she's in charge of all that equipment and stuff. And about 4 or 5 days, about a week ahead of Bible study, when we're going to broadcast, she'll go, "You got it written? I need the study guide. I need to have it," And so she keeps me in line. When she made our business card, she put CEO. She's a CEO.
No.
I said, "Okay, Cal, you go right ahead."
Well, one day you'll have to share the secret of how do you get your daughter to come live near you permanently. Because, now
that you have that new grandbaby, that's what you need.
Exactly.
That's all right.
Well, thank you so much, Gina,
Thanks.
for sharing your story and just your transparency, because I know it's never easy when we have to confess our shortcomings and the things that we've done. But God in his graciousness, I'm telling you, he forgives us and he shows us. And he's like, I got to get that out of you. Got to get this out of you. And then, we're more apt to move forward and do what he wants us to do, what he created us to do, which is we always want to be on his plan. And,
honor and glorify him. That's what we're created to do.
And so many of us are just so stubborn that we've gone our own ways and just realized what a mess we've made. But he takes us back. But pride is definitely something that most people are going to struggle with.
Absolutely.
And you just have to be aware of it when it starts to creep it back into your life. And so, but I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, well, that concludes today, Getting Real to Heal with Dr. Grace, and we hope to see you the next time. Bye now.
This podcast is made possible in part by Express Employment Professionals, the leading staffing agency in East Texas, helping thousands of businesses find the right employees. If you're looking for a job, visit expresspros.com to learn more. If you enjoyed this podcast, visit deepintheheartministries.com/podcast, where you can find all previous episodes, subscribe to our channel, or leave a suggestion for future topics. You can also email Grace at drgraceenglish.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.